Good afternoon, everyone, on this beautiful mid-October day. Welcome to week number 230, Justice Southbury's peaceful rally in support of the three words there, love your neighbor. Those watching for the first time, if you don't know, love your neighbor is not a religious thing for us. It is not a political thing. It is a value statement. That is, we start there and we move from there. And what we did last Sunday evening was we had a Zoom speaker series. Thank you to those who attended. We had a couple dozen people on the Zoom. It was Kathleen McLean, a motivational speaker and management consultant from Albany, who led a discussion entitled "Let's Talk About Race: Embracing Healing Dialogue." And I just wanted to give you a few of the highlights for those of you who weren't able to attend. She talked about bringing a piece of humanity to every space you're in. She asked us to consider what our social contexts have been. When we're talking to someone who might have different experiences than us, she described it as social context, so that we arrive with our background and history and experiences and successes and failures and disappointments. But we bring to our space our social context, and she asked that we consider what others bring as well. She quoted Maya Angelou, who said, "When you know better, you do better," which I think is consistent with one of the things we always talk about here, which is trying to understand things, that before we opine about something, we try to understand the perspectives. She said, questions that she gets, how do we heal? How do we help others heal? Some of her suggestions: break the silence, be willing to talk, be open to being corrected. We've talked before about how there are people who are trying and people who aren't trying. If you are going to try, you've got to be open to being corrected. And she said, be gentle with your correction. Recognize that someone else's social context may be different than yours. She suggested that we take action, including attending events which include all races. If you hear of something and you think, well, am I going to be one of the 10% of white people there? Go anyway. She suggested that we use our voices to heal and to enlighten, which is something I think we try to do here every week. I'm going to diverge just for a second, talk about two things that happened, and then I'll get to her final message. We had two 90-plus-year-old men on the Zoom with us, both of whom told such incredibly moving stories of things that had happened in the 1930s. That not only were they brought to tears, but it was really quite a moment for all of us. A man talked about how growing up in the South in the 1930s, where nobody had anything, and a black man came to his White House and asked if he could have some water. And of course, we're waiting for, his mother said no, go somewhere else. But she said, yes, come and have water. But he took off his hat and filled his hat with water and used that to drink. And he was wondering, well, why can't we give this man a cup? And it brought him to tears, remembering something that happened 70, 80 years ago. Incredible moment. And following those moments, when Kathleen ended the Zoom, she suggested that we think about the beauty of what she called the bouquet of humanity, which I think was a really neat way of talking about it, especially given what an emotional evening it was. So I would encourage, someone asked me, someone said, how did it go? I said, it went great. They said, did you record it? I said, I really, really hope so. I pushed the button that said Rick Richardson is recording. I don't know where the button is yet that says Rick Richardson. Will find it and send it to others. But I am bound and determined to make that search. And if I can do it, I will circulate it.